Automakers are in high gear at Detroit's auto show, and the largest car companies have their eyes set on Tesla as Ford, Nissan, and GM are all rolling out big plans for the electric car market. Phil LeBeau is live in Detroit with more on the story. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Melissa. Tesla is not here at the Detroit Auto Show, but there's no doubt that the influence of Tesla can be felt when you talk with executives from the different automakers. Here's an example of what we're talking about. There's a greater emphasis now more than ever to develop electric vehicles, more than just a niche model here or there. What are we talking about? Start off with Volkswagen. Today, committing to building a second assembly plant here in the United States. It'll build only electric vehicles. It'll be right next to the other VW plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee. When we talked to Ford CEO Jim Hackett yesterday, he was talking about their development of electric vehicles, and he said to me, we've got an EV surprise for sometime next year. And then you have Cadillac coming out with an all-electric model by 2021. And when I asked the president of Cadillac, how much are you benchmarking Tesla, the success of Tesla, what did he say? Obsessively. Here's more from Steve Carlisle.
I think they've done a lot to popularize electric vehicles and to get into the minds of consumers. I think that's been very valuable. Yeah, I'd say that's and just push the envelope in terms of thought process and made everybody a little bit sharper and on their game. I would say that. I think we had to wait a while to write the whole story because we don't know what happens when EVs really start to scale from a distribution and a customer experience perspective. So, for the rest of it and a profitability perspective. So, I think we got to wait a little while before we write the whole story.
Well, that story is starting to be written in terms of EV sales here in the United States. Take a look at this graphic because this says it clearly. If you look at Tesla's sales in the United States, the estimate last year, almost 200,000, that easily dwarfs what was done by General Motors, Toyota, Nissan, BMW. Add all of them up. They almost equal what Tesla did last year in terms of sales. They don't even match it yet. The bottom line is this, guys. Tesla, while nobody is saying that they have won the electric vehicle race, there is no doubt that automakers and executives are no longer poo-pooing them. When I talk with the executives here at the Detroit Auto Show, there is now genuine, not only respect, but also a little bit of what's next from Tesla? How do we catch up with what they're doing? Nobody's saying they can't catch up, but it certainly is on the minds of automakers here at this auto show. Guys, back to you.
All right, Phil, thank you. Phil LeBeau at the Detroit Auto Show. Lots of great stuff coming out of that show. So, Pete, what is amazing about Tesla is as quickly as they were able to ramp up.
Yeah.
I would think that bears would say, so can GM, so can BMW, so can any of the car manufacturers who actually are able to produce on mass scale already another kind of vehicle.
I would think that competition level is going to escalate very rapidly. Yes, absolutely. But you also wonder, does Tesla already have something that they don't have, which is that factor of we got to have it, which I think Tesla still owns. I mean, when you look at the electric market overall, you look at a lot of what's out there, and you still look at Tesla and say, you know what, these guys are the king. They still command. So I think the American makers are going to have to go very aggressively if they want to. In other words, they've got to make these things look better than what they've done in the past to actually start to compete with the Teslas of the world.
I mean, comparing a Bolt to a Model 3.
Not even.
Not really close.
So you know how I feel about Tesla, which is that I think it's a great car, and I think it's wildly overpriced, and I think that there's still a lot of questions about the validity of a lot of their numbers. So I agree with Pete. I mean, Tesla is a beautiful car. People that own it are almost unanimously bullish on the quality of the product. But if you don't believe that BMW can't compete in that space, and let's face it, the valuation of Ford relative to the valuation of Tesla, I mean, most arguments are apples and oranges. But I'm going to tell you that if Tesla is priced only as a growth company, at some point their day of reckoning is coming, because there's no question operational excellence has to enter into the equation, and that's definitely not there.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned BMW. I mean, when I think about Tesla, they wanted to get to the mass market with a Model 3, but the average price of that was like $55,000. The average price of a car sold in America is $34,000. So they may never get there. So it may be the Germans competing with them on the high end. And one of the things I think is really interesting, is that when we saw that Ford executive, he wasn't dismissive. I think back to 2007. Remember Apple introduced that new cell phone, right? And the kings of cell phone were Motorola, Nokia, and they were all really dismissive of this company coming in and doing something very different. So to your point, it may always be a very high-end product, but that executive also talked about profitability. They haven't really been able to do it profitably yet, and if they start competing with the BMWs or the likes, that may really hurt them, and they may never ever have a mass market product. They may always be on the high
end. A GM investor standpoint, do you want to see them spend the money to go into this market when profitability in the long run is a little bit of a question mark?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I think they have to. It's an imperative. And I think that Mary Barra sees it as an existential issue for GM and is putting resources there. Like, you know, this has been a monumental shift over years. And I think that GM can compete. And it's not reflected at all in their stock price.
Right.
But I think they can compete.